reminder. But let's get started. So thank you all so much for joining us today, talking about navigating parenting in 2020, because I think we all can agree that a lot has shifted, and we have our wonderful panel of very experienced coaches and very experienced parents that are going to be sharing just different tools, tips, how to keep harmony in this crazy time, how to balance that work-life experience as well as managing kids and homeschooling and everything in between. So let's just go ahead and take it away, John. All right. So for anyone who is not familiar, we are Ama La Vida, and we are a career, leadership, life, and health coaching company. So we help all of our clients to find peace and joy in their lives, whether it's through finding the right career, through transitioning career, through leadership, through health, and through life. We really live up to our name, which is love your life, Ama La Vida. And so we really just help people to pair them with the right coaches so that we can help them get rid of their blocks, really explore their best life, and help them achieve their goals. And the team, well, I guess, Johnny, I can let you take over. But today we have Coach John, we have Coach Sherry, Coach Betsy, Coach Jen. John is our Director of Career Services. Sherry is one of our career specialists. We have our leadership specialists as well, Betsy and Jen. And together, you guys are in front of a mastermind panel of coaches. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Mastermind panel and me.
Of course.
Hi, this is Betsy. We decided to host this webinar today because we were among ourselves talking about all the changes in our work and households since we all began working from home and perhaps having children who were no longer in school. And we were also hearing from a lot of our clients how complex navigating all these moving parts can be in each phase of what I guess is our new lives, at least for now. And so we thought it might be helpful to get together, talk about what's going on, let people sort of compare notes a little bit. Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the recommendations we have, tips and ideas for trying to wrap your arms around all these changes and come out on the positive side, or with harmony, as we've titled this. We'll then tell you a little bit about our personal stories and what's been going on in our own households, and then hopefully have a fairly hearty Q&A session. This is just a montage of some of the different kinds of things going on, and I think we'll touch upon all of these. Kids trying to work from home, kids trying to do their schoolwork from home, older children interacting with older parents, babies doing dishes or dishes being done while taking care of babies, and then just, celebrating a little bit of free time here and there, and trying to enjoy it when everyone's a little bit afraid to be out and about.
That baby works much harder than my kids. My kids are real boozers when it comes to dishes.
I love that baby.
So we want to just cue this up real quick. I know Betsy gave a great idea on the agenda and kind of what we were going to be doing, but when we talk about this concept of maintaining harmony, obviously there's a million different ways that we can talk about it, but we kind of went, how would we group this together? And we put some questions together as coaches to start to get you guys thinking. And we really wanted this to be an open dialogue. So this will be the first part of whether you want to call it Q&A or what. Go ahead and put questions, comments, thoughts, what you're experiencing in the chat. And if we need to, Jill will unmute you if we need some more clarity on something. But this is a great time to just start talking. Tell us kind of what's going on for you. We kind of grouped it here with work, home, and just general harmony, because what else do you want to call it these days? But, what does this really look like? So how do you plan to have a conversation with work? Are things changing for you? Maybe like you have a young child who's going to be going back to school soon. And what does that mean to you? Are you having these conversations at all right now? Are you scared to have them? Do you feel good about them? You know, what's kind of going on for you? So we have a bunch of questions here related to work for prompts. Same thing with home. What can you be working on with your partner? What are you working on? Do you guys have goals that you're focused on? What does that look like? How can you be more flexible? What does communicating the boundaries and expectations for your children look like? Is it different or is it the same? It's going to be, you know, a little bit of a different experience for everyone. But these are kind of our prompting questions just to kind of get you started and thinking. But please start typing questions in the chat. Jill is going to read them out to us, and then we're just going to start kind of sharing, and we're going to spend about 30 minutes diving in.
I actually have.
Oh, go ahead, John.
I was gonna say, I had just one question that we don't have to answer now, but I have a question for my other panel members here, especially for the ones that have, you know, grown or adult kids. My kids are younger still. They're not working the lazy bums. But for those kids, those of you that have kids that are in the workforce, or maybe close to it even, are you doing things differently as a parent supporting kids in the workforce than you were before this happened? You know, before, were you maybe more laissez-faire and letting them figure it out? And now, especially since in your role as coaches, this is kind of what you do, are you doing that more with your kids? So that's just something I'm curious about for my fellow panel members that have that. But I'll throw that out there kind of as a question if we have a break in other questions to think about. But if there's already some good questions from the chat, we can go to those first.
Yeah, and I'm glad to talk about that down the road, John, for sure.
All right, so we have a question from Michelle's. Job hunting now after layoff and completely petrified about starting a new job and homeschooling my 6-year-old. How to manage both? Oh, and be a wife and make time for myself. Is it possible to be successful? Okay, so I guess that first, Sean. But then I'll just follow up and we can break these up too, because these are both very, very good. Is it possible to be successful at work, make sure the kid is successful at school, and a happy family? So maybe let's touch on the first one first. So job hunting after a layoff, starting a new job, homeschooling, be a wife, and make time for yourself. Just a lot.
Well, I can kind of relate to 75% of what's in there, so I can speak to that a little bit. But I will say I want John to speak to the job hunting part a little bit when I get done. But one thing, it's kind of funny, John and I have actually had some coaching sessions, just the two of us before. And one thing we've talked a lot about is how do you create this harmony when you've got family and work and all this stuff going on? And this is the COVID world we're in, or the other world. And there are definitely a lot of tricks, tools, and tips that you can do, including using your calendar, for example, as a resource to guide your process. What's interesting about the use of the calendar is what John and I have talked about is like, hey, block things off like lunchtime, and then no one can book you for lunch. And it's on your calendar and you get a ding that reminds you, hey, it's lunchtime. Or 4 or 5 p.m., family time, ding, you know, it goes off. It's a reminder it's family time. So we can kind of use some tools and resources like that to help. That's something I've always done in the past. But what's funny is now I'm finding I can't do that anymore. So I'm going to like go back, and John's probably going to freak out. What? No calendar? I'm going to go back on what I know what I normally do. What I'm finding is working for me. I actually have my 6-year-old come into the office and review my calendar and my schedule with me in the morning so that she is really clear. Here are the meetings that mom has, and she'll say, is this one a pop-in? So is she allowed to come in and, you know, wave and say hi to my friends and stuff? Or is this a no pop-in? So we kind of have questions around what the calendar looks like, where there's pop-in, where there's not. And then the one thing that kills me as this like organized and structured person is I want to be able to say homeschool time is 11 to 12. I can't do that because it just doesn't work with my schedule anymore. So when I have her come in, what we do is we take a look at what's going on for the day. And then we talk about when are we going to do homeschool today? It's 10 to 11 today. It's 3 to 4. It's 6 to 7, whatever it is. And just allowing myself and her together, level setting to be flexible to kind of figure out what time really makes the most sense for us. I know that doesn't touch on every little thing, but that's really what's working for me is level setting with her, having her look at the schedule with me. And then I know too, like where else do I have gaps where I have time for a bike ride today or I don't. And just being really honest with myself up front instead of setting these expectations of, oh, I have the calendar blocked for an hour. I have to go on a bike ride because it may not work out just because of work and other things that are going on. So doing my best to fit all of those pieces in is kind of working for me from a schedule perspective. But John, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the career piece, and we'll see if anything else kind of comes out of that too.
And you did freak me out by saying about the calendar. I don't know how to live without that. But it's true. And not just the calendar. I'm a huge proponent of physical space being important too. Dedicating certain spaces to, this is the homeschool desk and this is the work desk, and having that, and not having necessarily everything at the kitchen table. I know that's not always practical. We didn't all plan to have home offices, so maybe everything is at the kitchen table, but having that kind of space is very important. And I share my calendar with my 8-year-old, and she makes me work out. So she's the one that comes down and knocks on my door. When you're trying to balance all of that with a job hunt, I think one of the most important things about job hunting in a time that is extra high stress, everyone's going to have a job hunt at some point, but we're going to call this a period of extra high stress for a lot of people. Other times of extra high stress are often if, a really sudden layoff that you weren't expecting, maybe coupled with some other emergency. Sometimes it'll happen where somebody loses a job while someone's sick or something. All these periods of extra high stress. The most important thing during these times of extra high stress is still do what Jen said and put a time block to it. Don't just say, every day I'm going to search for jobs until I'm dead exhausted and pass out. You have huge diminishing marginal utility past a certain point in time. If you can do effective job hunting in 2 hours, that doesn't mean you can double your effectiveness in 4 hours. It really means that if you push it into hour 3, you're miserable. And then not only are you cutting into the time you want to spend with those other aspects of your life, you're also cutting into the mood and the mental energy that you have to spend on those things. I know that I've failed at this at various points in my life where I said, I've just got to do 1 more hour of work or 1 more hour of this. And then I go talk to my daughter, and I really had planned to go play with her, and I'm miserable. And I don't have the presence to bring to her. Whereas if I just made it 2 hours every day, 2 hours, I know that I'm committing the best work to that and still leaving that other stuff open. It can hurt because you can say, well, if I don't have a job at the end of that 2 hours, what do? You've done everything you can in that 2 hours. You've sent out applications, you've made connections with people, organize your time well in that space, and then trust that you are doing the right thing and remove that guilt and say, the important thing I can do is be present for my family.
Yeah, John, this is Betsy, and I'll just add on to that. I've been chatting with a lot of my clients about setting realistic, maybe not realistic, setting key goals for whatever time they want to measure. Most people choose a week, and sort of being able to complete the sentence at the beginning of the week, which is, if I accomplish this week, that will be good. So then it sort of helps you create a calendar and create expectations for yourself and among your family on what is going to be accomplished that week. And of course, we all need to be flexible right now, but sometimes taking a sort of a big picture view helps you remove the things from your calendar that really aren't priorities for that chunk of time.
I'm also going to hop in. It's like a 4-chair turn today. One thing that I noticed, you said you had a 6-year-old, and a couple of you in the chat are saying you have younger kids. One thing that my kids are now older, but I also was a homeschool parent. One thing that I find works really well with kids is color coding. Sharing your calendar with them, but if they don't understand what's on your calendar, color code it. Each family, even if it's on a whiteboard, it doesn't have to be digital, color code, so everything has a code. That way it gives value to the time when you're looking. So when you block that time out to look for a job, or you block that time out for family, or you block time out for yourself, everyone in the family can see it has value, and they can recognize, oh, mom's read, this is mom's job time. Okay, cool. We gotta cheerlead mom. Hey mom, what was your goal for today? And did you hit it? Because at 6, we understand that. And it goes into a lot of behavior mod and making, reward charts, and it just adds a little levity, and that everyone can be accountable for everyone. It gives children a lot of feel like they have a lot of empowerment and control in an environment that right now doesn't feel very controlled, because it's not what their normal routine is.
Sherry, that reminded me of something too, from that color coding kind of standpoint. Someone had posted, I think it's on LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure I shared it, so you could probably even just find it on my feed. But this process of using like a actual lean manufacturing Kanban method for the family. And it works really great for the kids, especially because you can have here's all the things that need to be done, and they can be on these Post-its, and they can physically move with each colored Post-it for each child, physically move from each board. So it's like, here's the things that need to get done. Here's the things that have to get done today, right? Because your need to get done might be the whole week or something. And then here's the stuff for today. And then there's a doing. And there's just one Post-it in that spot at a time. Like, this is what's being done right now. This is what I'm working on. You can really only work on one thing effectively at a time. So here's what I'm doing. And then done. So then things can be moved to the done. So it also sort of forces your children to be kind of managed on their own schedule as well, so that they're not just kind of like looking to you, okay, what do I do next? And, hey, okay, that was on your calendar, cool. Does that mean we have free time for this? Well, hold on, like, let's also focus on what are the things that they need to do, make the bed, do the homework, whatever that stuff that they take care of the pet, something. But they've got their tasks. They can be focused on the things that they need to do throughout the day without having to come knock on the door and disrupt us or something as well.
Understand something with homeschooling. There's a big difference between homeschooling and school at home, right? There's a very big concept now. Everyone's homeschooling. Well, are you actually homeschooling, which means sort of creating your own curriculum or buying a curriculum? Or are you taking school from your district and just doing it at home? And that will change a lot of times how to approach your time. And the reason is because certain activities, if you're homeschooling, count as academic time. So you can combine family time and school time. Like Jen mentioned, we're going to go on a bike ride. Well, if you're homeschooling and you go on a bike ride, well, now there's science, there's math for how far you went, there's English if you want to, write a poem about it when you get home. Social studies if you want to talk about how a park got named. So I think it's important to identify what you're doing at each time. Are you homeschooling? Are you schooling at home? Because that goes back to what Jen said again about level setting for your kids. I think your kids understand a lot more sometimes than we give them credit for, and being in communication with them helps allay their fears, and it also helps set their expectations of what's going to happen. And I think that also builds, we're talking about skills and you're looking for jobs. Think about all the skills you're also building now for your family as a whole to move forward, which is huge.
And I agree with that too. When my daughter is doing, her schoolwork, I love having her in my office. I don't know if this is true for everybody, but as cooped up as I am due to COVID and everything else, it's easy for me to get distracted. Especially when I'm not on a meeting like this, but I'm working solo and I just have to be writing something. It's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to get pulled away. I find that I work better when I'm trying to set a good immediate example for my daughter who has to work on her schoolwork. And if I see her getting distracted and I say, hey, come on, you're supposed to be doing math over there, I can't say that if I have YouTube open instead of my work. So sometimes having your kids in the room with you can build a better relationship where you're both working harder rather than bouncing off the walls with each other. That might not always be the case, and everyone's kid is different, but I think you can give it a try. I think in a lot of cases, if you've never worked alongside a kid, even a kid under 10, give it a shot. You can really build some good camaraderie with your kids there doing that, and it can really set a great example for both of you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. All right, I just want to make sure we get to all of these questions because they're great. Okay, so let's see. So we got that one. How do you deal with context switch? Even if we're all working at the table, for instance, my kid asks me a question and either I'm so focused I don't hear, or it takes me a minute to get out of flow and then a while to get back in it. I've definitely noticed more headaches.
So I know that John is going to have some great thoughts, and well, I'm sure Sherry and Betsy will too. Just really quick for me though, I'm not good at context switch, I'll be honest with you. So I've kind of been a firm believer over the years that I can only do one task really well. I can't do two tasks well at all. So if I'm trying to, like John said, he likes to have his child in the office, no way. If I did that, I would not be a good work employee. Like, it just does not work for me. So I personally can't do that, and I have to set up the boundary of I'm 100% focused on this for 30 minutes, and then I will go 100% focus on this for 30 minutes, rather than being for 1 hour altogether and trying to do both tasks.
So I just know that about myself, and I will say the door is closed, I need no interruptions, and then when I know I can squeeze in a 10-minute break, I'll make that be the strongest, most effective 10 minutes it can be, instead of a sort of half present 10 minutes. That's just me. That doesn't answer your context switch question, but I think it's important to know what your skills are and your strengths are. And if it doesn't work for you, set it up for success. It's okay to say, I have to be fully present for this, and then when I'm done, I can be fully present for this. So that's just kind of my 2 cents.
And for mine, I mean, so I have a little context. I have 3 kids. I have an 8-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old. So context switching happens a lot. It doesn't even just happen from, work John to parent John. There's even very different levels of parenting, from the questions the 8-year-old has to the questions the 3-year-old has. So there is some hard context switching. What has worked for me, and I think can work at least a little bit for anybody, is there's never been a better time to push your kids to be a little more independent than right now. Kids feel that same loss of control that we do. They're feeling that same kind of walls closing in that we are. It's a great time to get them a little bit more independence on a few different things. I am a big fan of the phrase, try to figure it out for 10 minutes. If you still can't, ask me again. And pushing them in that direction, getting them on into the idea that they can do it, that they don't need to come to you for every question. Sometimes you have to set that up when you're not stressed and working. Sometimes what you have to do is foster that when you're 100% in parent mode. Like it's after hours, it's 6, 7 o'clock, it's dinner time. I'm 100% parent right now. I have no other distractions. And my daughter asks me, where did I put the juice, right? And even though in that moment, I have all the focus in the world that I could just answer that for her, instead I will say, where do you think the juice could possibly be? And get her into that mode of figuring it out. And then I heap praise, not sarcastic praise. I mean, I heap praise when she goes and opens the refrigerator and looks and it's there. I say, see, outstanding. You use logic, you figured out, you worked out where it could be and could not be. Foster it then so that they're proud of themselves for figuring it out and for being independent from you. And then during the day, when they say, Mom, Dad, I need help on my math homework, try to figure it out for 10 minutes. If you still have a question, ask me. With my daughter, 9 times out of 10, she does not come back and ask me in 10 minutes. She figured it out.
Ashley, this is Betsy. I envision you and your family sitting at the table, and, I don't know how old your kids are, but, a lot of these strategies work with kids who are easily able to pay attention and are in the flow that John's describing. And sometimes at the end of the day, it does come down to our ability to decide how we want to deal with these situations. And many of you probably in other contexts have thought about the difference between responding to a set of circumstances versus reacting to a set of circumstances. And this constant interruption can make us very reactive. Quick responses, try to get back quickly. And what we often urge our clients is take a moment, pause, consider what's being asked of you, respond to it, perhaps with John's strategy, which I like a lot, and then mindfully decide, and now I turn back to my work. It's like name it, turn your head, and go back. And sometimes the simple slowing down in a carefully thought out response and taking the extra literally 30 seconds to do that can make a big difference in your ability to concentrate.
Yeah, I love that, Betsy. My husband, I'm fortunate that I have help at home. So my husband is at home and he takes care of our daughter most of the time while I'm working. But the second that I open that door, which is closed right now, it's all of a sudden she's right there. Mom, can I have a snack? Mom, can I do this? Mom, I'm like, where's your dad? And he's right there. He's literally right there. It's just there's something about asking mom. So to Betsy's point, that ability to just not react, and snap or say, have you asked your dad, or what's going on, or blah, 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 is just kind of like a pause, deep breath, assess the situation, figure out what's going on, and then go forward in a way that's going to be helpful for her, but then also myself, because I have 2 minutes to take a restroom break before I have to hop back in the office and close the door again. But yeah, life happens in the middle of all of this, and that pause, that power of the pause is really key with the children.
Ashley, it's Shari. I'm also going to hop in and say I suffer from the same fate as you. Sometimes I'm concentrating and I don't hear. And my kids are now older, and my 19-year-old son, going to be 20, sometimes will still say to me, Mom, are you even listening to me? So at 19, he has a lot of really great words to get my attention and sort of snap me out of my focus. But when they're younger, I know this sounds crazy, but a bell, a pot, a pan, a noisemaker, something that you know if you hear that noise, your child is requesting your attention. That way, at least it gives you that opportunity to take that pause, take that second, and turn to said child and say, I see you need my attention. Please let me finish XYZ. I will give you 5 minutes, set a timer if you have to, and then I will give you my full attention. That way you're not constantly jumping back and forth from task to task. I, like Jen, struggle to multitask, and that worked for us, was me being able to acknowledge that he needed me, but I needed to let him know when that would happen. The hardest part as a parent was then making sure you keep your promise and give that attention to said child. So I was caught in that a few times where I said, yes, I will, give me 5 minutes, and then 15 minutes would pass. So, you know, trying to be respectful of what they're asking too, again, goes back to them feeling, like John said, in control and becoming independent, but also acknowledging that your time has value and you can't just do that power of the pause that Jen talked about, mindfulness that Betsy talked about, put it all together. And that really, it does help them.
Awesome. I feel like that works even for non-parents, and I'm speaking because I'm not a parent. That's something that my fiance and I go back and forth all the time. Like, when will you be ready? 10 minutes, and then 30 minutes go by, and we don't really honor that. But I think that's really important. Thank you, coaches. All right. So, we have it. Well, so this was a comment, so which I think is definitely worth sharing. My husband and I take a look at our calendars and figure out who is going to be, quote unquote, primary parent. When we have 3 kids, so someone always has to be on. Weekdays are packed, but keeping our weekends work free has been helpful in giving us both personal kid-free time. I like that, primary parent, the go-to.
Somebody has to be, I think, in charge of any given sphere. You know, it doesn't mean that one person has to be in charge all the time, but I think that if this goes to including your kids in those discussions, if there's no clarity around who they should ask, who they should go to, why aren't you asking your dad? Like Jen said, why aren't you do this? They need to know that clarity. So like, hey, when it comes to dinner time, mom's making dinner, dad's making dinner, or, you know, I'm doing this, do that. And I don't want to just say just mom, dad too, because there's a million different ways this could be. You could be a single parent with a brother or sister living with you to help. There's a million things, but they know. And even just explaining your work, explaining what you're doing. Sometimes kids don't get it. So I've worked from home since well before COVID. And I know my 8-year-old's very respectful of it. My 3-year-old doesn't get it. My 3-year-old doesn't really get why daddy is just choosing not to play with her all day. And it breaks my heart because, you know, she just says like, but you're here. Like, why don't you just want to play with me? Don't you want to play with me? And my, you know, I'm melting. My heart is breaking. But going through and explaining what I'm doing, and I'll sometimes sit my 3-year-old on my lap and point to things on my screen and, you know, as much as I can to a 3-year-old, explain what I'm doing and what work is and how work plays into the larger narrative of our household and how work pays for the house and the fruit snacks that she eats and stuff. And by including them in as much of that discussion as they can, they sort of get it more because they, you know, even at 3, they understand chores or responsibilities or things you have to do, but they can't always translate that into what's happening with your computer or on the phone. So including your kids in all of those discussions and decisions helps them have a context to figure that out and feel more calm, feel more secure. And then when they're more calm and secure, they will, you know, tug on your leg a little less and ask you a question every 30 seconds because they don't necessarily do it as a means of reaching out for security.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Got to give those little tykes a little bit more credit, right?
They're all smarter than you think they are. No matter how smart you think your kid is, they're smarter. They're more independent than they can. I firmly believe every kid will rise to a level that you allow them to rise to. I remember the very first time when my oldest daughter she wasn't even 2 yet, and she started to climb on the kind of jungle gym thing that was at the park. And every just, you know, biological survival instinct in me wanted to have me leap up and run over and pull her off that thing and say, no, it's too high. No, you can't do it, or hold under her. And I fought it. I fought it down. And I stood there white knuckled on the bench and I was, 4 feet away from her, but I didn't sit up. I didn't make it seem like I was nervous. And then she went up 2 bars, looked around, decided for herself it was too high, climbed back down, and was fine. If you give them that space to be that way, they will rise to it. So you'd be surprised if you tell your kid what you do, not just for a living in a general sense, but tell them what you did for work that day. Tell them how that meeting went or what that, assignment that you had to do was. You'd be surprised at how much they really love joining in that conversation and will rise to that more adult level of conversation as a result.
Guys, we've been talking a lot as coaches about managing things that are taking place at home with our children, but not as much about managing expectations with the people on our teams at work. And although really only the first question was about starting a new job and managing both things, I'm just wondering if maybe we should shift gears a little bit and talk about managing expectations at work, if that's possible, what's going on in different kinds of work environments, how working remotely is affecting people's ability to be vulnerable with the people they report to or who report to them, and if that's something we should shift gears and talk about a little bit.
Yeah, if you guys want to do that, we have other questions to be answered.
So I'll park that, and if people, we can save that for sure. And if
we can save those for the Q&A.
Sure, great.
Betsy, do you want to start off that?
Oh no, I thought you meant that we would save my topic for Q&A.
Oh, sorry.
Why don't we keep going through people's questions now, and then we'll go back to that.
Okay, because we do have a comment. They definitely want to hear about managing work expectations, but I think so let's do this. Let's use the rest of this time to touch on that, and then we'll save these questions at the end and go ahead and do that.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, I'm going to toss that whole conversation out there, both for all of you who are participating and for the coaches. What are some of the unique situations you're encountering with your work now? How are you seeing, to use the old slang, work-family balance issues coming up? What are the tough conversations that you've been able to have or perhaps not yet been able to have? How are expectations changing? Anybody who wants to kind of chime in with more detail on that kind of questioning, and or any coaches who are experiencing those kind of topics with their clients, let's lay that out on the table.
I have something that's been coming up quite frequently with a lot of my career transition clients or my clients that are starting new careers, and it's a concept that I've been hammering out with these clients for the past several months. We are often looking for, especially for those of you on this call that are transitioning or you're looking for a new job and you're worried about how are your children going to play a part in that? How are you managing expectations when you do have these kids? We often try to aim for a quote unquote kid-friendly environment or a kid-friendly work environment, an employer that understands. That's surprisingly hard to translate by itself, because plenty of employers might say instinctively, sure, I have no problem if you have kids. Why would I discriminate against you if you have kids, any of that? And they might mean it, but maybe they don't have the context to know what that really means, especially if maybe your new manager employer doesn't have kids themselves. So there's other things you can look for that are not directly a quote unquote kid-friendly policy, but are definitely things you should be looking for in a work culture if you are looking for a kid-friendly environment. One of them is you want to avoid cultures that have too much of a focus on kind of outdated modes of internal professionalism, right? So if you have an employer that expects you to be always in like a 3-piece suit when you're at an internal meeting that's not facing any clients, that might be dangerous, because sometimes my 3-piece suit has spit up on it, or it has baby food or something on it. So you want to look for a culture that says, hey, when we're having an internal meeting, it's okay that you're in whatever shirt you're wearing today. Like there's not an expectation of, there's an expectation of professionalism in attitude and demeanor, not in like dress. And if your hair's not brushed today, if it's in a messy ponytail, okay, like we don't care. Those are important things to look for. Another one is a focus on Deadlines is good. A focus on completing your work, completing your assignments is good. Not a focus on are you logged in every day. There are still some companies that are using, even with remote workers, software that says, I want to make sure that you have all of your software open at exactly 9 a.m. every day, and I'm tracking mouse movements to make sure you don't just open up the software and walk away or things like that. If you have parents, what a giant pain, right? I totally get that there's always going to be some jobs that might require constant attention like that, but in many cases it's not, and it shouldn't be considered universal. So if you see a company culture that says, what we care about is getting the job done, because I'm going to admit something to my own team as well as everyone else, my work schedule does not anywhere close look like 9 to 5. Here's what my work schedule usually looks like. I start working about 10 because everything before that is kids ready, breakfast time, getting set up, all that. I work from 10 until about 4, and then it's get kids to do everything they have to do in the afternoon, schooling, assignments, all of that. Then it's put kids to bed at 9, and it's work from 9 until about 1 or 2 in the morning to get all of my tasks done, and then the next day. So I'm still working 8-9 hours a day, but they don't look anything close to that. But I have a team that supports that, and nobody on my team is telling me like, hey, I do want you working at 8 a.m. and I don't want you working at 11 p.m. because the work's getting done. So look for cultures that support that, and that indirectly supports you being a working parent. And those are often just better than trying to find a culture that just kind of rubber stamps the we support working parents mentality.
This is Betsy again, another suggestion that I would consider is if you're really feeling stuck at work and not sure how to have this conversation, to really take a moment and consider who a trusted associate, a trusted leader, advocate, mentor is within your organization, and try out or test the conversation that you want to have with that person. And it might sound like common sense, but many of us start thinking right away we have to go, to the top of the food chain and demand our rights, or we have to shy away from having that difficult conversation until we're really at our wits' end or whatever. And most times there is someone within the organization with whom you've been able to build a trusting relationship. And I really recommend starting there, figuring out what message it is that you need to share with that person and getting some advice on the best way to communicate it internally.
What's super important to do when you're dealing in the workplace, and especially trying to work remotely and deal with your kids and do it all, is a couple of different things. First is acknowledge that it's okay not to be okay. You're not going to be perfect at everything that's going to happen. Second thing would be to make a list of what kind of support do you need? Because sometimes you're not sure what you have to ask for. So sometimes taking that time and thinking about kind of what support do I need? Do I need a more flexible schedule like John just suggested? Do I need to speak to a manager? Do I need help with childcare at home? Is that something else? So what kind of support am I needing? And that helps from there determine who do you need to speak to about it. Is it somebody I have to speak to at work? Do I have to have a conversation with my partner? Do we have to bring in additional childcare? Is there a family support system in place? Do I need, if your kids are older, do I need to lean on my kids for some support? I saw somebody in the chat said they have a toddler. Well, if you have a toddler, then that requires constant supervision. So then you need to set your framework surrounding that. What's the first and foremost need there, and prioritize. If there's 2 working parents in the house and a toddler, every day you may have to prioritize different and say, okay, on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I have much more flexible schedule. I can be primary caregiver, or do we need to bring somebody in? And I know it's difficult now because there's not a lot of daycares open, but then if there isn't, does that conversation now have to happen with coworkers or a supervisor and say, hey, listen, here's my tasks for the day, and on Tuesday and Thursday, I can't get onto the computer until 2, but I'm certainly willing to work from 2 to 10, or I'm certainly willing to work, I'm an early girl. I'm certainly willing to work from 6 in the morning till 9, but I got to be with my child from the middle of the day. Could I then pick up in the evening? People are a lot more willing when you go in with a plan and what support you're expecting, because then often they know how to answer you. If you just go in and say, I just can't do this, they don't know how to help you. So determining what kind of help you need and who you have to ask for that help is usually a better way to success to getting what it is that you need.
Yeah, I know we're running low on time, but I just want to add to what Sherry was saying there, because I put a little example of, I actually coach, and they're not on the call, don't worry. I coach a manager-employee combination, and in this virtual world, it's been a little bit tough, where she feels like she's working 24/7, but then she also has kids at home. He feels like he can't ever get a hold of her, and it's probably because there's kids at home. So they've kind of had this big disconnect as to what was going on. So level setting and having that conversation was key to them. But one thing that was really important for her as the employee, very much like what Sherry was saying, is really find out what it is that your manager, supervisor, whatever needs. And what is it that they actually need from you? And that might be the literal this due at this time, but maybe what they really need is some communication. They need a check-in from you at a certain time of the day. They need something. So her and I sort of brainstormed with his style, what was it that would make the most sense? He'd like to be able to call her and have her answer the phone at any time. Well, let's have a conversation around, we can do that, but let's set 2 pockets of time in the day that are when the calls are. So there's one in the morning and there's one in the evening, and that's when we do the calls. And then at the end of the day, he likes a recap of everything that's going on. He prefers to call and get it. She doesn't have time for that, but she can sit down and type up a really quick email with 10 bullet points to say, here's everything that was accomplished today. And that works for her and it works for him. So really having some clarity around what it is that the leader needs from you and how you can satisfy that. If you can get that clarity, you can likely do that without even having to have a conversation of, I'm struggling right now, it's tough, my kids are at home. It's not that that stuff's irrelevant, but satisfy the need that they want. You can make all the other stuff work. You know, you don't have to spill the whole beans and give them your life story. You just need to give them what they need, the email with 10 bullet points on it.
Awesome.
I know, isn't it?
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jen.
Okay. So this is just real quick, and we'll put, you guys will have a copy of the slides and the follow-up if you need them. Actually, maybe we'll just, Jill, maybe we'll just copy and paste this little out and toss it into the email if we need to. But it's one thing we didn't plan to send you guys, so bear with me. I just threw something on Jill's plate she wasn't prepared for. But just really quickly, set yourself up for success. This is a lot of things that we've already talked about, but don't hesitate to reach out for help or support. Like Betsy was saying, maybe there's someone that you can have that conversation with at work in that safe space. Maybe you have a friend or a family member that you haven't relied on heavily in the past, but you possibly can now. Maybe there's someone who's currently in your home that doesn't participate in certain activities. Why not find out if maybe they can help out with the kids stuff a little bit more, or the dinner stuff a little bit more, or something. Be transparent and vulnerable with those around you. So it's okay, like, you know, it's okay to feel the way we feel. It's okay to share. It's okay to do all these things, but we really need to make sure that we're getting that out in a way that feels healthy for us. So find that person that you're comfortable being transparent and vulnerable with. Maybe you're not comfortable with doing that at work, or maybe you need to do it just enough that you have the right amount of information, again, that you know what the need is, so you continue to move forward. Use your tools. We've talked about calendar, timers, you know, set a timer, the Kanban, I put the link in the chat. We'll make sure we put that on the email too. Any of those tools that can really be a good, helpful resource. To communicate to work at the right level. We've talked about this in various ways. And I would just say, and I think all of us here would respond, but if any of you have more detailed questions around that and you want more clarity for your situation, how would I have this conversation at work? Feel free to reach out and let us know. And we can definitely kind of tailor that a little bit more for you specifically, so it's not so generic. Focus on your vision. Think out future state. It is so hard right now to set any goals. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? So what is something that maybe you can control or be focused on that would make you really happy? And maybe it's a successful homeschool year for your child. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, but set some sort of vision that you're working towards so that you kind of know what you've got going on. Reflect and check in regularly. If you don't journal, now's a great time to start. Start writing down your wins. What went really well in my day? What am I looking forward to tomorrow? Use that resource for yourself, and hopefully you can gain something either just from that confidence building and the momentum of kind of tracking and logging that, or maybe something else comes out of it where you learn something about yourself in the journey. And then just keep the dialogue going. This is not like a one and done conversation, and I think that's really important when it comes to work. I don't know how many of you back in March, it was like, here we go, we're out for a week. See you in a week, guys, right? And then here, yeah, we knew that wasn't the case. But point being, this is not a one-time conversation. Keep it going. Have it in different iterations later as time goes on. I just mentioned this too. John's going to touch on the rest, but we will add some more resources to this because we'll add that Kanban link and we'll just add that last slide of stuff. But we've got just a few resources that we're going to send you. Sorry, John. I just wanted to remind you that too.
That's totally fine. And of course, if there's anything else that we don't include and you do want, feel free to ask. We're here for it. So putting this all together, and we've covered a lot of different things here, and I feel it was a productive sort of discussion all over the map, but there were some core central themes. All of these things have to exist in harmony. The reason we move away from that term work-life balance is that there's this old idea that your work and your life are two equal buckets and they have to weigh the same, but that's not how it is. Your kids are in your office and you're splitting your day up to get them to where they need to be and to doctor's appointments and all of these things. What needs to happen is they need to work in harmony. That means your work needs to acknowledge that you are a parent, and your family needs to acknowledge that you have a job or are looking for a job. These things all have to work in tandem. And so keep that in mind more than trying to keep them, in two totally separate boxes that weigh the same. Move away from that. There are practical tactics. There's mindset stuff up here, but there's practical tactics to make this work. Color coding a calendar, using Post-it notes. I mean, these are things that are down in the trenches, but even little changes can have big effects. So find a little change that you can implement, and then don't do it alone. Whether it's family, work, resources outside of those things, friends, coaches, reach out, find somebody. And on that note, we are gonna just throw this out there. Of course, we're here. Whether you are looking for help in any of these specific areas or areas that are tangentially related to them, and you just want somebody that sort of understands your situation as you get help on that, hey, Ama La Vida is here. All of the coaches that are on this panel are available, as well as a number of other fantastic coaches at Ama La Vida. So whether you need somebody who is a parent or isn't, there's somebody here. If you work with any of us, you might see a kid screaming through the room at some point. That's fine. We hope that you be understanding of that, and we'll totally be understanding if you have a kid screaming through the room while we're on a call with you. But I also want to, I really want to just, promote us a little bit here. Ama La Vida does work with all of these fields and more. So if you are struggling with finding a job right now, if you have a job and you're struggling with making your career a priority while still maintaining your life as a parent, if you are struggling with finding balance between those two things, if you're struggling with other goals, with health or life goals along with those things, Ama La Vida is here to help. Right now, during the month of August, we've just launched our new membership program. So it's an absolutely fantastic time to learn more information because we're doing a bananas great deal. It is 25% off an annual membership. So at the bottom here, there is this link to book a free consultation. We have our relationship specialists. They do a free 30-minute phone call with you. They talk through whatever issues that you're trying to find clarity around. They know everything about these coaches, all of our coaches. They help play matchmaker. That call's absolutely free. That call's no obligation. So if you're even remotely considering it, it's a great time to jump on. And throughout all of August, 25% off annual membership, which is something we're not going to do again. So it's a great time to just get a little clarity around it. If you thought this was helpful and you thought I could really use more of this, it's a great time. And if not, we hope that you'll still keep joining us on webinars and see us on LinkedIn and connect with us in other ways, because we're happy to help no matter how. And on that note, there's our email addresses all there. Feel free to connect with us. All of us are also very easy to search for on LinkedIn. If you go to Ama La Vida's LinkedIn page or just search for any of us by name, we're very easy to find and we love connecting. So feel free to reach out to us and we can help in any way we can. And now that's the end of my little infomercial at the end of our webinar, and I'm going to throw it out to our remaining Q&A.
I love your infomercials, John. Okay, so we have 3 more, which I hope, so coaches, I know you all have very, very insightful things to share, but just be aware of the time. So we have 3 more. Okay, burnout help. My husband is a first responder, so I'm alone majority of the time to work from home, full-time with a toddler, and I'm currently the only employee in my department who is a parent. So work expectations haven't changed for my coworkers who went back to the office in June, but still drastically changed realistic tasks for me. So I don't know what is off limits to tell my boss until I can get my toddler into school.
Oh, all right. But we're
Johnny,
gonna
do you
do
want to
lightning.
take that
I was
one?
saying we'll do lightning round. We'll do one coach.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
I'll just designate them to the coaches. So Johnny, you take this one.
first off, that is an incredibly stressful situation all around. I think that the most important thing is that you have to come in not with that stress, but with your offer, right? So you have to come in, have that discussion, and say, here's how I want to be my absolute best self. You're the only employee in your department, so there's a lot of things on your shoulders at home, a lot of things on your shoulders at work, and you want to come in saying, I can carry that. Here's what I need in order to carry that. So just say, here's every space I have available. The way to kind of frame this in your head is, if you needed, let's say you needed every Wednesday off, you don't come in and say, I need every Wednesday off. You come in and say, I can give you my absolute all every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. You frame it in that positive way of what you can bring to the table. And then you can say why. Like, I can come in and give my absolute all Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, just because on Wednesday I have XYZ with the toddler, or if it's hours in the day instead of day, whatever it might be. And you come to them with your concern about getting everything done. I want to know that I'm able to deliver everything I can to you. If you need every task by 3 p.m., is it actually okay if I get it to you by 9 p.m. the night before, or 10 p.m. the night before, or will that bother you? It shows that you're there. It shows that you're willing to put that in, and shows them that you are the one bringing to the table the solutions to working around it. And I find that when you come to solutions, even if those aren't the solutions that end up being what they use, everyone's a lot more willing to work with you and come to that because you came in saying, here's me ready to run this track and and contribute as much value as everybody else, even if the shape of it has to look different. So it can be challenging and stressful. And I can't even imagine, because I don't have the first responder spouse, so I can't even imagine the stress that is during this. But if you can put that kind of one layer lower and go in on that first conversation with being solutions oriented, I think you'll find that people will come around. They don't understand because they're not parents, but I think you can help them understand by showing how ambitious you are in that space.
Love it. Thank you, John. All right. I have a 1-year-old, and my husband's job demands his attention most of the day. I'm also expected to carry a full-time workload with scheduled meetings throughout the day. I'm in education. How do you translate some of this advice in a situation where it's involving a toddler who is mobile and needs constant supervision? So I think we kind of touched on that a little bit, just in terms of, I think, Sherry, you were saying that toddlers need that constant supervision. Does anyone else want to add to that?
And that includes any of you on listening in too. Some of you have had some experiences managing toddlers, and we'd love to hear from you as well. You can throw it into the chat.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if anyone else has any input on that with toddlers, feel free to, you can unmute yourself and hop in.
And definitely for everybody on here, if you feel comfortable doing it, put things like your own LinkedIn in the chat for everyone else, because all of the people that are on this call might really benefit from networking with each other. I mean, we're all working parents on this call. These could be people to understand, to commiserate with if you just need to vent. So this could be a good group to find some networking with. So it doesn't have to just go from you to us. If you feel comfortable, throw those LinkedIns in the chat.
All right, so does anyone want to touch on how do you translate some of this advice in a situation where it's involving a toddler who needs constant supervision? So maybe any just like tips for that you guys have kind of touched on that might be more applicable for toddlers?
Do you ever just put your kids in the chicken coop? Is that like the easiest way to do it?
Oh goodness. I think that.
Oh, I was gonna say, sorry. So he did say that you did touch on some of the question, and he thanks you. Said that I think it will boil down to just asking for more help. But Jen, if you wanted,
I think it circles back to some of the conversations with work, getting clear on the expectations. And I would think, I mean, in education, at least that there's that love of children, so maybe that comes into play somehow, hopefully, fingers crossed, right? So making that part of the conversation. But I think even the stuff that John said, to just reiterate, here's what I can do, and then coming forward with as many solutions as you possibly can, in addition to having that open dialogue, will be really helpful.
Let me just add to that. I know we're supposed to be doing a quick round. You need to be brutally honest with yourself, though. Don't set yourself up for things that you can't do. Don't promise to do things you can't do, both personally and professionally. Be very honest and realistic about what is viable for you, because that, one, makes you accountable, two, will give you celebrations, and three, then goes further to uphold your own credibility and your value to that company. Because if you do what you say you're going to do, that's a huge win for you. So be very honest with yourself about what that expectation should and can be.
And celebrate the successes when you are doing really well. You know, we talked about reflecting and all that. It's so true. Give yourself a big pat on the back when you do something really well. Celebrate those wins. It's hard. It's hard to, you know, like, take a little win, kind of go, oh, but just take that moment, pause, and celebrate the successes when you can.
Always celebrate. All right, last one. So this is kind of circling back to what we were talking about before, Betsy. I hear mixed messages when interviewing about not giving employers a reason to hire. Do you recommend having those employer conversations later, or really safe to have in the interview process?
I have to bounce that back to either John or Sherry, because I think they deal with those kind of issues a lot. And I think John started to chat about that, but are there any concluding thoughts, either of you?
I'm a big proponent of putting it all out there first. There's no denying that sometimes you're going to face some discrimination for this. I am of the mindset that, in general, everything is going to get worse after the interview. Whatever things you face from the hiring manager are only going to get worse in the job. So if you have a hiring manager that isn't supportive of your, work-life harmony as a working parent, you're not going to have a manager that's any more supportive of it than the hiring manager was. So I want all of those things out in the open. I want to know right away if somebody's going to be critical of that of me, because sometimes you are going to have to reject offers too. There's going to be offers, and I know it's painful when you're on the job hunt, but some things aren't right for you. And you want to be in a place of confidence where you know that up front. I want to know up front if a work environment says we need everybody to work until 11 p.m. from 8 a.m. every day. You don't get breaks. You can't go home. You can't take sick days because your kids are sick. I want to know that, because no matter how good of a job that might be, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, and I put something in the chat too, and I think it really does. I hate to say it, but it's like, I do feel like it depends on the situation a little bit, which is not a good answer ever. But it's like, is it relevant to the job? If there are things that are not relevant to the job and the requirements of the job, you probably don't need to share them. So maybe that's something related to kids, maybe it's not. It's hard to say what it's related to, but just to echo what John is saying, from a culture standpoint, if they ask you a question, you're thinking, well, what's the perfect answer, right? I got to answer this in the way that's going to get me the job. No, answer it in the way that feels good to you. Otherwise, you're going to be offered a job and you're going to go, well, great, now I got to do this weird thing where I gave the perfect answer, but it's totally not me or my style or how I am. So you're only going to get a job you want to get that way, which is an extreme positive. So there is a little bit of a balance with that, though, too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm bobbleheading myself over here. Yes, Jen, 100. Yes. If it's not relevant, then it doesn't belong. It has to always be relevant.
And Megan, send me an email, jennifer@alvcoaching.com, and I have an email that I'll follow it up. And I've got some really good culture questions and stuff I can send you via email, but shoot me an email and I'll send that to you right away.
Jen, are you referring to that last question?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one. And I think too, and we'll just close out on this, I think just circling up to that last question, it's kind of balancing out, what are your values? What is the job that you're at? And I'm speaking from experience, wanting a job really badly and settling might seem like a short-term solution, but long-term, is that settling going to impact you in more ways than one down the road, which means you might suffer, your family might suffer, your kids might suffer, and just everything, kind of suffers. So definitely weighing out those values and what means most to you for your next career move. So, all right, everyone. Well, we are over. So thank you for everyone for sticking around. No one signed off. So that's good that these are really, really great questions and awesome responses. So thank you to the coaches for everything. And thank you guys so much for everyone participating. These were phenomenal questions. And of course, we always get the most out of what we put in. So very, very much appreciate you sharing. And I know that these are not tough questions and not tough situations or times, but you know, I hope that this gave all of you some tips and tools for really setting yourself up for success and trying out some new strategies with your little ones, or not so little ones, I guess. All right, everyone. Well, I'll let you go. We have a lot of coaches. We have a lot of thank you. This was awesome. So well done. All right, everyone. Look out for our follow-up email with all of those resources and that last test that Jen threw on me. Just kidding. And you'll have everyone's emails in there along with the link to book your free consult. So all of that good stuff in that follow-up email. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we hope to see you guys all sometime soon.
Talk to you
Bye,
soon,
everyone.
everybody. Thanks.
Yeah.